If you have CSD, you may be afraid to talk about it. I know that it's hindered me in my life and in my recovery process. So I want to talk about that today. And I want to also say the audience that I'm speaking to are probably people that are just like me inside, that have had to deal with frustrations and trauma, trying to feel like how are they going to fit in? How are they going to get these words out of their mouth and not be labeled as troubled, confused, or disadvantaged? Because I think this label of PTSD or complex PTSD denotes a mental health problem of sorts, a condition that has to be fixed. And I'm here to tell you from the inside out that I don't think it has to be fixed. I think it has to be accepted. And I know that there's a lot of literature and studies and others out there that I'm speaking to. I'd like to encourage you and join me, comment on this channel. Give me some feedback. So what do you do? That's where I want us to hold hands and try to find a way out of this mess, because we can't do it alone. When we stay isolated, we stay like either on the mountain or in the cave. We may develop an incredible resource inside of us to share with others, our family, could be your children, could be loved ones, could be people in your community. And for all I know, you may have the gift and the fortune to be able to touch mankind as a whole, because we're dealing with so many changes so fast today because of the technology that has just really accelerated the development of mankind over the last 100, 200 years. And you can just look around and see all the trouble that people are having and how they're having trouble communicating with each other and being understood themselves. So I'll hold that I believe that people that have been touched, that have been potentially chosen to share their knowledge and insights with others, have to develop a new way to communicate and to connect with each other. It's estimated that between 2 and 20 million Americans, 2 and 20 million Americans have complex PTSD. And I think that equates to about 0.5% to maybe 7%. And the studies are, how many people do you know that really admit to the challenges that they have in their life? So I don't think that there's a study that has reached a firm verdict on exactly how many people there are. But let's just pretend that there's not many people that maybe even would comment on a channel like this, Transcend, which is designed for people that have complex PTSD and out themselves as someone that has a condition that is very much misunderstood. And often people are looked at as victims because they have a condition that challenges them. And as I've been on this journey myself, I see a lot of people struggling to communicate. I've had challenges like that. I know speaking to the camera alone is one of my biggest fears. I don't know where I'm going to go or what I'm going to say next. And I've been up talking in front of groups as an engineer or as a business leader or as a sports figure. And I didn't know what I was going to say next. And I found it in my heart to try to speak to some generic kind of representation of the group and connect with that. And that can come off confusing sometimes. And I find that the best writing that I do, I think some of the best conversations that I've had or speeches that I've delivered, maybe a monologue, was when I had really connected with one person in the crowd or one person that I'm having a conversation with and really just relaxed and responded to them. And that's where it fights the process of communicating with the complex PTSD condition. Gets really, you just let everything go, you relax, and you trust yourself because you have been prepared to deal with situations that people that don't have the condition have no idea what to do in some of the circumstances that you've been prepared to address. So I also struggle with editing my videos. I don't like to edit to manipulate an audience. I don't like to edit to try to maintain your interest. This may be an arrogant assumption of mine, but I figure if you want to hear what I have to say, you'll keep listening in spite of the flaws that I have in my organization and delivery. In fact, one of the people that I studied for about 6 months was a doctor who's about 15 years older than I am, and he was doing back surgeries, and through his own encounter with his own childhood traumas presenting themselves whenever he was in his 40s and then in his 50s, in his maybe 20-year journey to figure out what was going on with him and where did this come from and how is he going to deal with it going forward. I found that his communication style was very broken and very troubled, and it was difficult for most people to follow. And I think that may have limited although he delivered some stuff on YouTube and he reached out to some peers for help and understanding successfully, I believe. But I think the brokenness of the common communication tool set that someone has with complex PTSD makes it challenging to speak to people in the broad community who are used to seeing people speak without the elements of trauma kind of riddling their nervous system and their body and their speech pathways. Because let's face it, the survival mechanisms that have been put in place have been designed to support what's working for the masses. And that's where I have gratitude for the technology and for the masses. And I think there's a lot of confusion that has built up over the years between the mystics and the spiritual leaders and the people that consider themselves living without trouble and are just basically participating in the life that they've been born into. And I say just, I'm not trying to diminish the day-to-day challenges that the common person has in dealing with the feelings that they have, in honoring all of the commitments that they've made to others, themselves, and loved ones, and maybe the community, the home mortgage, the job that's frustrating them. I'm not diminishing any of that. But when you deal with the inner turmoil that someone that has complex PTSD deals with, it's an entirely different life experience. And that's what I'm speaking to today. I need people to speak out and to share their experience with me and to come forward and join, because I think we're at this point in the evolution of mankind where we can transcend with leaps and bounds in sharing our knowledge and our insights and wisdom and find healing and meaning from the lives that we've lived and the traumas that we've suppressed and struggled to deal with. And I feel very fortunate to have used a number of methods in my journey to get clear and to find a way to try to reach out to my fellow complex PTSD colleague, you might say, to hold your hand and help you through this maze that we're riddled with in trying to fit into something that we won't. And I think there's a lot of love and power and purpose ahead of us together if we can bond like that and collectively appreciate each other for our own strengths and weaknesses. Because I think there's a lot of suppressed strengths that end up getting pushed down and it creates havoc and anger and confusion, not only in ourselves, but in everyone around us, because that's just the way the human instrument operates. So I hope you'll join me in trying to clarify what really the majesty of what we've potentially suppressed and can assemble for the generations that come. And let me also warn you, I don't believe that this happens overnight. And I believe that some of the things that we might collectively come together and realize that we need to share with our fellow man, with our family, with our children and loved ones and community, it may take decades, if not generations, for some of those truths to be appreciated and, most importantly, to be practiced for ultimately our survival. Because I do believe that I don't understand where God is taking, or where the universe or nature or whatever intelligence is out there is taking things, because I look around and I see 96% of the world lives outside of the bubble that's been created by the US. And my philosophy, my learnings of what I've discovered from my own battle with complex PTSD, I can't apply those rules to my government or to my neighbor. I can only live by the code that I feel like has been planted inside of me. And I think that's a common code that we share as people that have complex PTSD. So this is a limited audience that I'm really speaking to here. And I know there may be others that are listening it would be wonderful if you connected with this and shared it with someone who might be suffering and afraid to speak about this, to try to get some help or guidance or coaching, to recognize the jewels that have been planted inside of you that may just be seeds that may never have a chance to grow unless you start to learn to communicate and accept those things that are viewed as flawed from the conformed picture that society may be giving you through the conditioning and just through the everyday life. Reporters are speaking to people as if they're a generic person and maybe totally unfamiliar with some of the challenges that someone has with complex PTSD that may be trying to fit in to a role as an engineer or a businessman or even as an athlete. And I think there's a lot of athletes out there that find athletics are the one place that they do feel at home, because they don't have to necessarily speak all the time. It's more of a physical engagement that really works from an aspect of our humanity that's not educated formally, maybe coached and rounded off a little bit, but the primalness that a basketball player that's running down the floor that knows that there's a person 20 feet over here and they throw the ball to them without looking, where does that skill come from? They certainly didn't learn it from somebody talking to them in a classroom. These are innate abilities that we have that collectively we can strengthen ourselves and build more of a safe space for us to grow and connect around those and support each other, to use those for the betterment of ourselves, our families, our loved ones, our friends, our community, and ultimately mankind. And that may take 500 years, that may take 1,000 years, and it may be the way that we're designed. Who am I to say how long this is going to take? But you look back in history and you see us continuing to discover things, and they're things that were present all along. The world was a long time deemed to be flat, and people were killed who challenged that concept. And today we scoff and laugh at people who would say that the world is flat, and they're looked at as if they're totally ignorant. So if you follow what I'm saying here, there's probably a lot that we have yet to learn. And my gut, my instincts are saying that we have a lot more to learn together if we can connect with each other. I'm Mark Roach. I hope you're enjoying the Transcendent channel, and it's provoking you to look at yourself, look deeper, accept some things about yourself that you may not find acceptable in the common world, and you join me in trying to find a way to hold hands together to make something new. Transcendent, in some respects, may be about miracles. You look at the technology that we have today and some of the abilities that we have to maybe to speak together on a cell phone, or just to tape this and share it with you today, is a miracle. If you go back 2,000 years, for example, this would have certainly been impossible. So if you take today and you pretend you look forward to 2,000 years and look back, this may look very primal. And I hold that there's a large body of love and benefits that we can share with each other, and with gratitude, accepting some of the limitations we've put on ourselves or had put on us with the conditioning and with the conformity of society. And I don't think it's necessary for us to fight against that, but I do think it is necessary for us to join together and begin to give ourselves a safe space to be all the best.